I've been with the organisation for a number of years now, assisting our teams in finding great people to work with them. So yeah, happy to be talking to you all today.
Yeah, that's great. But before we go to the slideshow, I just wanted to pick up on some of the opening remarks. And you mentioned about the watch out for the voices that are not always heard. Lifestyle Solutions is a mission, purpose-driven organisation. It was actually founded exactly for that purpose. And our purpose statement is everyone is equal. We believe everyone is equal. And that sometimes causes me problems with people's definition of what equality means and what equity means, and of course there's different interpretations. But what we mean by that is creating an even playing field for people who may not have the strongest voice, who may be vulnerable, who may not have the opportunities that maybe some of us who are in a better position are able to access. And it's really creating a level playing field so that everybody has that equal opportunity to shine and to live the best life they can. So that's why we're here. That's the whole reason that we're here. I'm happy to go to the opening slide and just give a little bit of background about the organisation, if you'd like. So Lifestyle was founded in 2001 in Newcastle. So you can move on to the first slide. I think we're still on the opening, yeah. And it was started around the kitchen table with I think 5 people. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, thumbs
Yeah,
up.
okay. And it started with some family and community members who knew some people with a disability, intellectual disability. And they got funding from the government to open one group home in Newcastle. And 15 years later, we had 120 group homes all around Australia. Basically, today we're in every state and territory except for the ACT, and we will be there very soon. So we are a true national organisation. One of the distinguishing features about that is there's very few human services organisations that are truly national. Most human services organisations are local, they're community based, and they're quite most. There are some very large ones, but most of them are quite local, and that's great. But we can bring the benefits of having a national organisation, a national infrastructure. We have 2 primary areas that we work in. We work with people with disability, and it's predominantly intellectual disability. So they may have autism, they may have acquired brain injuries, they may have minor intellectual disabilities, they might be high functioning, but pretty much all the people that we support have some form of intellectual disability. So we talk about adults, and that's funded through the National Disability Insurance Scheme. We also have about 30% of our operation provides services to children and young people in out-of-home care and foster care. So young people who are not able to live at home for various reasons. So that's the second part of our business. And then we have one unique operation in Alice Springs, and it's called Bindi Enterprises. And Bindi was an organisation that merged with Lifestyle many years ago. Bindi was the very first disability services organisation in the Northern Territory. And it tends to focus very much on employment and training and Aboriginal art. So there are many Aboriginal artist studios in the Northern Territory, but Bindi is the only one that supports Aboriginal artists with a disability.
Amazing place.
Yeah, it is an amazing place. So that's a little bit about Lifestyle. I'll go to the next slide. As I said earlier, we're a mission, purpose-driven organisation, but we also say we're a values-driven organisation, and that's really important because that's at the heart of everything that we do. And we have 4 values that we talk about. So own it, so taking responsibility and how we get that job done. Respect lives here. Respect is critical. Respect, we can never live up to the mantra of everyone is equal if we don't respect everybody for who they are. So it's such a critical one. Keep calm and be happy is probably my favorite. We have a t-shirt for each one of these, and my kids think that's me, because what we do is difficult work, and we're a people business, and we work with people, and we work with people with challenging behaviors. It's very easy to get stressed out. The work is not easy, so we always have to remind ourselves to keep calm and be happy. And finally, make it matter. So we always make a difference to other people, make a difference in people's lives. So they're the 4 values, and that's what we use to build our culture, to hold people to account. Better service, which is what's the title of this slide, is our promise to the people that we support. So this is the way we articulate in simple terms what we want to do. We want to provide reliable, responsive, flexible service in a friendly, empathetic, and caring way. And this is really important. Why are those 2 things separated? Well, one is the transactional side of service delivery. It's making sure we turn up on time, we do the job right, we're compliant, we have the right tools, the right skills, the right equipment, and we follow the right processes. We do things right. And the other side of it is about the personal side. We must be able to deliver those services in a friendly, empathetic, and caring way. So we must walk in the shoes of the people that we support. What's really important for us is that we are here to support people to live their lives. We are not here to manage their lives or to do things to them or to be their guardian. We're there to support them to live their best life. And the reason I talk a little bit about this is because historically in the care sector, the human services sector, that has evolved over many, many decades, there was a paternalistic approach to caring for people. So we know better. Well, we don't know better. It's actually their lives. We're there to help them to live that life. So that's a really important point I want you to think about. And when you start to think about how you might play a role in your career, that's a critical differentiator. Not every human services organization does it this way, but it is contemporary thinking, and we have a strong belief in that. So we'll go to the next slide. Duncan's clicking away here, but he hasn't actually got control of the screen. So just a little bit about the organization in numbers. So in 2020, we supported over 2,000 people. We had a 91% satisfaction score, which is very good. In some of the service breakdowns, we supported 279 people in supported independent living. That's a particular category of disability support under the NDIS. We had 229 children in residential care. We had over 1,200 people getting community access, so that's when we go out and support them in the community.
Yep.
The SIL is accommodation services, so I should probably use this to explain that many of the people we support are in a residential setting where we provide the house and the staff, and they live, that's their home, and we support them. But we also support people in their homes and in the community. And of course, we have foster care as well. So we had 253 foster carers. Support coordination is a planning service, and we also do that. So if we go to the next slide. So over 2,000 people were employed by Lifestyle. We have a 71% engagement score. That's pretty high for the sector. It's in the top quartile. 95% compliance rate in training. Training is a big problem, particularly in the NDIS world, because the funding, the shift from block funded models to a participant user pays model has meant there's less margin, and it's more difficult to have the funds to train people. It's very difficult. So we're very proud of our training record, and it goes to our promise of better service. We believe that the people, our employees who provide the service, is the most important asset that we have. And if they are well trained and well supported and do a great job, then the people that we support will be taken care of. We've nearly 200 local service locations nationwide. And
growing all the time.
Growing all the time, yes, we're growing quite quickly, so I might move on to the next one.
That's it. This is the final slide.
I'll get Duncan to talk a little bit about some of the roles that that we have, and what I'd like you to think about when we're going through this, because we'd really like to hear your questions. And we're nearly finished, we'd like you to think about what kind of role are you interested in, and how are you going to get there. So Duncan might just give us a little bit of.
That's it. Thank you, Andrew. So you would have seen from the previous slide with just over 2,000 employees nationwide, the vast majority of our employees are people who are working in what we term frontline services. So they're working directly with our customers, people we support, children and young people. So probably the most important part of our organisation in terms of our staffing are our frontline workers. We've got a range of roles available. The entry point for most people are what we call disability support workers or youth support workers, which are those people engaged in directly providing care to either people with disability or the children and young people in our care. And as Andrew explained, those in the disability support work, you may be working in a supported independent living accommodation service.
So what kind of work would they be doing, Duncan? Describe a day in the life of a support worker.
A very busy day, lots of activities going on. You'd be assisting customers with their mobility around the house. Some of the customers are in, or the young people we support are mobility impaired, so they might be wheelchair bound, and you're assisting them with transitioning from different parts of their house, from bed to their wheelchair. You might be assisting them with their personal care needs. You might, and other mundane sort of daily living activities like cooking, cleaning around the house, that sort of thing. But the main part of the role, and this is often a misconception with support work, is that you're there just doing daily activities of living. Over and beyond that, what we do quite a lot is working on support plans, where we are looking at building the skills and capability and confidence of the people that we support. So that each person that we provide service to have their own needs and wants and desires, and we'll develop programs around that. So that could incorporate a bit more independence in their own home. So rather than cooking their meals for them, assisting them with them doing those activities. You might be also working with your other colleagues to provide other sorts of cares, like they might have medication needs, and you'd be assisting with that. And there might be programs around their mobility, and working on that as well. So they're quite complicated, a lot of complex roles. It's as I said, the shifts go quickly, the staff are always busy. There's a lot of work around, I guess, ensuring that we document everything that we do, making sure that there's really good care plans in place, that they're followed, that there's good programs and routines in the houses. That's important to a lot of our customers, particularly as in some independent living houses, you might have several people living together with disability. So it's obviously important to coordinate activities between both the people that you support, but also the colleagues that you work with. In the community access, we have two main types. You have people who engage our services for regular daily activities they do, like going out into the community for some of the things that we take for granted. That could be going out to their regular shopping trips, or to outings to visit friends and family, or it could be going to our day programs where they go to one of our community hubs, where they've got a range of activities and programs that they undertake at those hubs. So you might be transporting people around to those different locations, assisting them in and out of vehicles, and then actually being present at those locations, running programs that could be painting or cooking again, or I think down at Wallsend Community Hub we have our dance days.
There's a whole range of activities. I think the key point you made earlier, Duncan, was that ultimately we're trying to help people achieve their goals. But there is a reality to it as well. I like to think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I'm sure everybody here is familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but we have to provide the fundamental, the basic needs. But what we're trying to do is to get to the top of the triangle with these people.
That's right.
And help them with their plans and help them to achieve better outcomes. And it's a long process. It can take years.
That's it.
But that's why we're here. We're trying to help them to get better outcomes for themselves.
That's it. And it's not just about maintaining, you're right. It's about helping people grow. And the same applies in the youth support side. So when we're working with children and young people, yes, there's the care of the person in the home, but there's also some of those higher needs where we'll have behavioural support plans and therapeutic support plans in place for those young people, people who've often experienced trauma in their young lives. And the care plans are person-centred, they're goals-orientated, and it's about trying to give those young people as good a launchpad into their adult lives when they transition out of our services.
So behaviour support consultant is quite a technical role, isn't it?
That's right. It's we have and actually we do have people who've completed community social work qualifications. Those roles are really they're a very important role because it's about assessing the needs of the young person in care and completing a whole of person assessment and then drafting up a therapeutic support plan or a behavioural support plan depending on that person's needs. That then informs the support work team of how best to engage with that young person and deliver good outcomes for them, any developmental plans or any special needs that they have. So it is quite a complex role. It's actually one of the most challenging roles for us to recruit to because it takes a very unique type of personality. And it's unique amongst people who are in that space. We hire social workers, psychologists, occupational therapists, and the like to perform those roles. And often the traditional role for people in that field is to work in a community, in a team-based environment, in a hospital or a clinic. And but the behavioural support role is more about being out on the road and going to lots of different locations on a regular basis, working with lots of different teams on a daily basis, but independently. And then, being really good at report writing and writing up plans. So it's interesting that it's one of those roles that has a duality where you're working within a national clinical team with, quite, highly skilled and experienced mentors, but you're also at the same time operating independently. So it's a really important role in our organisation because a lot of those teams, the support work teams, and our case managers and our support officers and support coordinators rely on the information that they get from our behavioural support consultants.
I might explain the structure a little bit just to give a little bit more context about particularly the service excellence specialists. So what we put here really are the frontline roles. We have to focus on what happens in the back office. But the way the organisation is structured, we use a team-based approach. So there are self-sufficient teams allocated to groups of people that we support, which are basically in the community. And those teams are organised around the people that we support. We call those teams service delivery teams. And they're made up of support workers, support officers, case managers, living carers, and so on. They deliver the direct service. They are supported by what we call service excellence specialists. So one service excellence specialist would be allocated to maybe 9 or 10 communities and neighbourhoods to support those teams. Now, we don't have a hierarchical structure. We have a flat structure where those service excellence specialists have more experience. They've probably worked as a support worker themselves at some stage. They've probably got some professional qualification. They have spent a lot of time understanding the real challenges in the field, and they go out and support those teams.
That's right.
So they're the people that I rely on to basically make sure that everything works. But sitting behind them and supporting that group, there are a couple of national teams. So there's a 24/7 incident prevention and response team. Again, the people in that team need to have experience in the front line, and because they have to actually deal with live incidents. There's a high number of incidents and incident management in our business. It's part of being involved in the sector. There's also a national practice and clinical team. So they support people with their practice and with their clinical requirements. There's also a national workforce planning rostering team. So when you get down to the actual business side of things, it's really important to be able to do human resource planning, rostering and workforce planning. It's a critical component of. Then there's a safeguarding team, which is made up of an investigations team and work health and safety. So people are looking at how do we protect and safeguard the customer, and how do we protect and safeguard the worker.
That's right.
And then behind all of that is your typical business functions like finance, HR, recruitment, technology, and so on. So that's kind of the way the organization works. And to work your way through the organization, one of the best things is to do some frontline work. It's a great place to start.
And one of the things that we do look for, particularly when we've got people applying for roles like support coordinators, care support managers, behavioural support consultants, we love to see people who've done either disability support work or youth support work, because that, even if it's just in a casual, as a casual role while you're studying, or as an internship or a placement, it's really good to have that baseline understanding of what the fundamentals are, because that's really the engine room is those support workers of our organisation.
Regardless of which part of the sector you go into, I would probably advise you to do that in any case, because getting that experience is invaluable, because you can go into a professional role, and we see this sometimes where people have the theory, but they don't have the practice.
Yes.
And getting that practical experience is so critically important, because it means what you read in the textbook actually means something.
That's right. And in fact, Andrew, we even find I've been talking to quite a few of the service excellence specialists recently, and a lot of them are still maintaining, face-to-face hours, working shifts on the floor.
Yeah.
And they all say these are highly experienced people who've been working with us for a long time, and they say it's really good to get that grounding, to be working directly with our customers and people we support, because it helps set their expectations and their understanding.
And we get a lot of undergraduates, graduates, and master's students that come in and work with us, to learn real human behaviour. And sometimes they never let this; they stay in the front line.
Yes, that's true.
But they do come in. It's a fantastic experience to really do the real work with the person and support that person, and the sense of fulfilment that you're going to get by seeing that person develop, because you can see that person grow in a period of time. So that's kind of a broad overview of what we do. I think that's the last slide we had to present.
That is the last slide.
So really, it's over to you guys for questions, and what would you like to know?
Thank you so much. That's fantastic. You've clearly understood a lot of the issues that new graduates are feeling and got questions about, and creating that sense of structure about what Lifestyle Solutions, how it's structured, and the front and the back room work. I've got a couple of questions here, but if what we might do is work through the questions that I've got online at the moment, and then if somebody has a question that they want to put to Andrew and Duncan, I've gathered from Andrew and Duncan they'd be happy to hear from you. So we might just start with what's already been asked, and then go from there. So one question was, is there training in particular to work with people who are living with psychological disabilities? Or
100%. And actually, I was thinking before that question was asked, and it's a great question. We didn't cover the training and development that we provide all of the people that work with us. Any person who's employed by Lifestyle Solutions undertakes a full induction program and training program, particularly our frontline support workers. We have a dedicated internal learning and development team that delivered both standard mandatory training as well as individual tailored training to our staff. So we start with our mandatory induction, which includes our corporate induction, which most organisations do. We have a mandatory suite of training, which is our Essential 11, which are the some of our core competencies and knowledge.
I think it's 15 now.
Is it 15?
So but some of the things that we might cover in that essential training is medication management, behaviour support, certain therapeutic practice techniques
Yep.
that are related to. So there's a kind of a base lot. So it'll teach you basically how to be a support worker. And then it goes up and up and up. So we have different levels of therapeutic support training depending on the complexity of the role that you're dealing with. But the whole organization gets a baseline.
That's right.
So when I'm talking about the 95%,
yes,
that's what we're talking about. So and just so you understand, the only reason it's 95% and not 100% is because there's always new people joining. Now we give them 2 months to complete the training.
That's right.
And we also have what we call a buddyship. So we do a number of on-the-job training practice. Buddy you up with somebody until you're ready to start. And then we have another process which we call reflection and support. Some of you may have heard of professional supervision. So it's the same concept. We don't like to use the word supervision because there's a hierarchical tendency about it. That's the only reason we don't use it. So we like to use reflection and support, and teams are trained how to do that for themselves, but we also have access to a group of practice coaches who roam around the country and come in and help solve problems, help the team solve problems. And then what we do is if some of the reason they're having a challenge is lack of training, we make sure they get the training. So we have a continuous improvement cycle, which is all about skilling people up and identifying those gaps, because it's never perfect. It's just never perfect. So we just keep going over and over and over again.
That's right.
That's great to acknowledge that that's never finished and that you're always on that journey, but also that the organization can't be 100% sure that everybody's had access. It's a really recognized reality. Would that training be available if somebody was casual in the organization? Yeah. Absolutely. So that's fantastic. So there's, it's that real boon of you could step in and try and grow your experience while still getting access to the support that you've described.
And absolutely. And look, our goal is to have career pathways available for people. So we have a lot of people who might be completing their degree and they'll be working with us as a support worker on a casual basis, because that suits them while they're studying, because they can flex up and down while they're completing their degrees. They do lots and lots of work during uni holidays and then maybe scale it back a bit during the term. But then when their circumstances change, we provide pathways to permanent employment, or there might be other roles that they might be able to take on once they've completed their degree. And we're very keen to have those conversations and look at internal pathways for people within the organisation.
It's also quite common for people to work for more than one organisation at the same time. We collaborate with. We're part of big industry groups, and we're one of the leading organizations in those places. We encourage a lot of collaboration and sharing, and sometimes we might swap and send people over and get people back. It's not that easy to do that kind of stuff, but we're very open-minded in relation to that, and there's a lot of cooperation, I think, amongst the sector.
Yes.
So it's not. There's always a little bit of competition, but it's not like the commercial world. So it's very collaborative.
We've got a question from somebody who's got a fair bit of experience as a disability support worker. Kamal, did you want to ask your question?
Yes, so I want to ask a question, like if person has this 1 year working as a disability support worker and plus have some bit of experience working with people with intellectual disabilities, how that will lead that person can lead to work as a support coordinator?
Absolutely. That's a really great question. What we really look for, that sort of experience is definitely what we'd be looking for. One of the key things about a support coordinator that we look for is having that knowledge of how NDIS funding works and how to access a range of supports for the customer. and definitely having that very customer-centric approach where you're understanding the needs of that person and how they can best access the care they need. So definitely, if you've got a background in that, that's something that we definitely look for. We also look for lived experience. People who might have family members, friends, colleagues that are receiving care that they might have helped. So we take both professional and lived experience as very important knowledge sets and skill sets.
And support coordination is a really interesting one because it's a very new role in the sector because this didn't exist 4 years ago.
Yeah, due to NDS.
So one of the things that I look for, so to repeat what Duncan said a little bit, is that to be able to understand customer needs, you need to have that empathy that we talked about to be able to understand customer needs. You also need to have some lived experience or working as a frontline worker to actually understand what the services are is very helpful. But the thing that you really need, a lot of people don't really have, is the business side of things, and to be able to understand the NDIS and to be able to navigate those complex relationships. And it's hard because you might get someone who's really good at that from a business background, but they're not very good with the customer side of things. So a lot of people are being trained to do this job, and a lot of organizations are figuring it out. So if you have a gut feel or a knack for this, I think you can do really well because it's an emerging skill.
And I think the critical thing is putting yourself in the shoes of that person and perhaps their families or guardians, and how overwhelming it can sometimes feel and frustrating to get what they need, even to understand what they need and what is available out there. I think oftentimes people don't know what they can access. Does that answer the question?
Yes, I think that did answer. Yeah, come on. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Another question, slightly different, with the behaviour support consultants, would there be a particular type of additional study or training that you'd recommend that somebody did while they were doing their social work qualification? Is there something that would give them an added lead in applying for that job?
Well, I would recommend that anyone who wants to go into that field do a program called CALM, C-A-L-M, and it's out of the UK. It's called CALM UK. It's a therapeutic model which is designed to reduce restraint or eliminate restraint where possible, and it's completely based on understanding people's behaviour, understanding the context, understanding your own behaviour, understanding organisation culture. So we're implementing that program across the whole organisation. It's probably the best thing I've seen. I don't have, just to declare, I'm from a business background. I'm not a practitioner. I'm not a social worker. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a health. I'm a business person. I've done this program. It's fantastic, and it really gets to the heart of understanding challenging behaviour, why it happens, what are the circumstances. And I think if you do that, it's very pragmatic and practical. I'm not sure I'm sure you can engage as an individual, but that's I think you can do that core training, the core model for it's not that expensive, but I think that's something that's very, very practical. It's probably built in. There's probably elements of it that's built into some of the coursework that you guys do, but it's the way this is packaged up. It's packaged up in a very much a practice, from a practice perspective. So and I'm happy to introduce you to the director, Brodie Patterson, if you would like that introduction, because I'm sure he'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, well, and I'll make sure that we send it around. Everybody who's participated, so that people, if they can, follow up, because it is quite interesting. I've not done a poll, but quite a few people have the disability support worker experience as going through uni, but it's that next step, and that's and often the university course is very general, you know, I'm sure there's elements, like you say, of calm in there, but it's not that packaged approach. And that's what people are looking for, so that they have that extra level of confidence when they're going for jobs in this sector. Yeah, so that's
Really
great.
good. Really good.
Yeah. One very practical question is, you know, do people need to have a car to be in the different locations? So tell us about that.
So I could tell you, I had a meeting within this week, and we've just a new executive general manager for disability just started, and we were meeting with recruiting somebody, and she said, well, why does the person need a car? And it depends on the location.
Yeah.
Depends on the nature of the work, I think, is the answer. Duncan could probably get into more detail on it, but it does depend on the location.
Yeah, and look, a lot of our services will have a pool vehicle, depending on the needs and depending on the funding for the customer. But generally, our services are located, you know, within easy access to transportation. And so if you rely on public transport, particularly if you're living in Sydney, in the greater Sydney metropolitan region, most of our services are quite accessible. So if the customer needs to go out and about, or the person we support needs to go out and about during the day, there's usually a pool vehicle on hand. If you want, we also have, as a part of our employee package, access to salary packaging and novated vehicle leasing, if that's what you choose.
So was the question, do you need to have a car or do you need to have a driver's license, or both?
It was actually, do you need to have a car? But possibly the driver's license would be crucial, would it? Is that right?
License is important, yes, because you might need to be, you know, if say for instance, one of the people we support has a medical appointment, you might need to take them to that appointment.
Okay, I think that put it this way: if you were going for a job and there was two of you and one had a license and the other one didn't, and everything else was equal, the person with the license would get the job. Like that's the reality. Look, there are, I think, occasions where we can accept people without a driver's license, but it means that their prospects for development are limited because they can't do certain things in the field, in the front line, that is. But of course, that's if you're working in the front line.
That's correct.
You don't have to have a driver's license. You do. You have to have it to do my job, because I have to go and visit everybody. So
yeah. That's it. So for some of our roles that are more office based, you wouldn't need to. But if you are providing direct care to the people we support, then we'd recommend that you do.
No, that's great. I mean, it's great to have the honesty of the clarity. That's what people are looking for. I think that sort of, you know, if there were two people similar, it's good to know that might be something that you can do. But if you can't, for some reason, you can be strategic about how your next step. And
look, I'd always recommend, if you're particularly looking at any of our roles online and you're not sure, pick up the phone, talk to our recruitment team. They're always happy to answer questions. They can help you. They can discuss what you need to, what mandatory requirements we need for each job. If you don't have them, we can talk about how, what steps you can take. Sometimes there's leeway depending on the role and depending on who we're recruiting to. So I'd always recommend pick up the phone, have a chat to the recruiter. They'll always will look to help you. They'll very rarely, if they do, tell me, because I'd like to know if they're turning your way. But no, we're here to help, really.
Well,
sometimes I only have to ask this question, but sometimes you got to try a few times, because you may get a rejection, but because your particular skill set didn't match that particular person or that particular house or the dynamics of that team. But you might fit in with another team. Like it's like that whole dynamic. Like we might all have the right values, but we might have a different set of personalities, and we've got to match all of those things, and particularly with the people we support.
100%.
So don't be disheartened by that, because that can be it.
That's right. And what we do at the moment, some people that apply for roles with us get a little bit confused. So they get right to the end of the selection process and they hear from our talent professional, be on the phone to them and say, look, sorry, you haven't been offered this particular job, but we've recommended to place you in a talent pool. And we get a lot of sort of pushback on what's a talent pool. And basically what Andrew discussed is that we've identified through that selection process that you've got all the skills and attributes that we look for in a support worker. However, when you get to the final stage where you're sitting with the team where the role sits, they're looking at team fit and customer matching, because it's very important in terms of those dynamics. And if there is a mismatch there, it doesn't mean that you're not suitable for that role. What we'll do is that we'll then go, okay, we'll earmark you for another role that you might better match, because it's all about the person that we're supporting. So, and that's a conversation that don't be afraid, if you're a job applicant, to have that conversation with us, because it's actually a reassurance. It's saying, look, you've ticked all the boxes. It's really just about, who you'll be able to work with best in our organisation, and that might be now, or it might be in 2 or 3 weeks or a month's time.
That's refreshing to hear that there's several avenues that people can rather just feel that the walls come down, the shutter comes down and prevents access, which has been how some people are sort of anxiously feeling it might be. The other question we've got here is would there be any scope for like a volunteer opportunity with the support coordinator role? Do you envisage that kind of, is there that scope within your organisation, or not really?
Look, there's to be honest, we're not geared up for that.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's something that we want to be able to do, to maybe do internships or give people an opportunity. We're just not geared up for that kind of thing at this point.
No, I think that's refreshing as well to know that that's there's some organizations that are focusing in that way, and it's good to hear when that's not. Another question is, do you hire people with a disability themselves?
Absolutely. We absolutely will, look at anyone to do the role. I guess our only caveat on that is that when we come to the final stages of selection, we need to make sure that the person that we're hiring is able to provide the supports needed. So it's a delicate balance that we need to find, but certainly there's no barriers to anyone applying for a role, as long as you can do the inherent requirements of the position.
I think going even broader than that, we probably don't have enough people with disability working for us. We'd like to have more. But I'd go broader than that. In terms of our commitment to diversity, we want people from all backgrounds. That's it. From all backgrounds, LGBTI, Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander. But I think about diversity as the whole, the whole world, all cultures, all backgrounds, all points of view, because that's who we work with. We work in the community. We work in the real world. We don't work in a bubble. So we need diversity, because they're the people that we support.
100%. And by and large, we really do try to recruit a workforce that is representative of the people that we support.
Well, that's great. I think we're sort of almost out of questions. Does anybody want to come online and just ask for a question? Has anybody got a question they're dying to ask, and you want to open up your audio and pop it? Tell us.
Could I ask a question quickly?
Go for it.
Thank you.
Hey, Annalise.
Hi. Is it possible to be added to your talent pool while we're still a student, like if we expect to graduate soon, or would we have to wait until we have a qualification in our hands? Please
come talk to us. Absolutely. We'd love to hear from you. So what you can do is you can either contact us directly, jobs@lifestylesolutions.org.au, or visit our website. And actually you'll see alongside all the lists of active vacancies that we have in each location and region, we have an expression of interest page, and what that's designed for is that you might not see a position that you can apply for right now, or that is of interest to you right now, but you're interested in working with us. So you can submit an expression of interest to us, and one of our talent professionals will get on the phone to you, have a discussion about what you're interested in, and we'll then put a little flag in the system that in 2 months' time or 6 months' time, we'll give you a call, see what you're doing, and see if there's anything that we can do. And by all means, feel free to pick up the phone or send us an email just to touch base. So yeah, absolutely, please do.
It's great to hear. Thank you.
So I think that's our wrap. I'd like to thank you most sincerely, Andrew and Duncan, for your clear, presentation, really advocating for Lifestyle Solutions as being a great stepping stone and potentially a really fulfilling long-term career location as well. It sounds really accessible for new grads, but also for specialized and experienced staff as well. So that's really great to hear.
Would it be all right if I made a closing remark?
Absolutely, please do.
For all the graduate, or for all the students that we've got here on the call today, one of the things that's really critical to us, and Andrew spoke about it earlier, is that we're a values-driven organisation. Our selection process, as someone who's in the recruitment team, I can tell you that our first and foremost criteria that we look for anyone who wants to work with our organisation is your values. So we actually ask people about that during our selection process. And for us, your values, your attitudes and your behaviours are more important to us than the skills and knowledge and experience and knowledge you bring. Because we can train you in the skills and experience and knowledge that you need to do the job. But what is our indicator of success is that we have people who align to our values, who have that really empathetic and caring approach, who have the calmness of mind and the own it attitude of really taking ownership of what you do. If you have all of those attributes, we all fill in all the gaps along the way in your journey with us. But first and foremost, so if you're ever feeling, when you're looking at particularly our roles, but also in our sector, that you might be a little bit nervous because you might not be as experienced or skilled as the next person, we put more emphasis on those values and behaviours than we do on the experience that you might have on your resume. I don't know if Andrew wants to add anything to that, but that's, if you have that as a parting sort of thought, as you sort of start entering into your careers, what we're really looking for is some of those, because one of the things that they said was what sort of graduate attributes do we look for? It's the values, your behaviours, your outlook, your communication skills, how proactive you are. Do you take initiative? Are you diligent? Will you follow procedure? Do you have good written and verbal communication skills? Can you work with lots of stakeholders, interact with lots of different people? Can you be an advocate? All of those sort of things, and hopefully, I think those are skills that you've been developing along your journey in your studies. Bring those to your job, and you'll be successful.
Rousing cheers, I think, is what people are saying. So I thank you most sincerely for that's a lovely way to finish. It just shows that people aren't just a cog in the wheel. It's about them, themselves, their person. And that's a really lovely invitation, I would say, from Lifestyle Solutions. So thanks very much. And that's a wrap. So thank you very much again, Duncan and Andrew, for making the time. And most sincerely for Lifestyle Solutions for creating that presentation as well. Yeah.
Super. That's great. Thank you, everyone. Happy Friday.
Yes. Thank you.